Eagles fans are absolutely livid with this, as the Eagles suffered their first loss of the 2025 season against the Denver Broncos yesterday afternoon. Now, folks, this game was a tough one to watch, as it seems the Eagles just kept on shooting themselves in the foot in what could have been a very winnable football game. And we're going to break down the refereeing, the penalties that the Eagles had, and some of the play calling that happened in this game yesterday, all in today's edition of the Eagles Digest. How's it going, folks? I'm your host, Jack Collier. You're going to have to excuse my voice here because I am suffering a bit of a cold, but, we're going to keep on going and just get into this little breakdown of what happened yesterday. So, this is Nick Sirianni's quotes after the game. You can pause it if you'd like to read the rest of it. He said, "Yeah, obviously, I've been around this long enough where calls, they balance each other out. I know sometimes there's always going to be like, well, we got screwed in this one. I don't think that way. They all balance each other out." And, he's right in saying that. Obviously, every call is not going to go your way at the end of the game. That is just football. But you can see here that the Eagles were penalized 9 times for 55 yards, and the Broncos were penalized 12 times for 121 yards. And that's a tough graphic to look at, because obviously the Broncos were sloppier than the Eagles in that sense. Not totally, but obviously they got penalized for way more yards. We only got penalized for 55, but we still ended up losing the game, which is just a frustrating thing to see, as this team is supposed to be one of the best in the NFL, and a lot of veterans on this team as well, a very, very disciplined team. So you hate to see that we have these penalties that ultimately call back, that obviously give us less yards and put us back further downfield, which is obviously not what you want to see. Obviously, the biggest call of this game was in the fourth quarter on the one of the final plays of the game, which was against Dallas Goedert, where there was a missed pass interference call. The officials were saying they saw mutual hand fighting and hand-to-hand combats and did not see action that rose to the level of a foul on the play. Goddard was quoted saying here that they obviously didn't throw a flag. They have to go back and see it on tape, but it would have been investing to see what would have happened down there. Obviously, that every call is not going to go your way. Again, there's just no use in dwelling on it. Obviously, you want to just kind of keep moving forward into the game this Thursday against the New York Giants, and kind of just brush it off, and obviously just keep going and not dwell on these missed calls, because there's just no use in doing that. But just to get into a positive of yesterday's game, was the play calling was much better. I think Kevin Patullo called a really good game. Obviously, some of those passes did not get where they wanted to be. I know there was a big one where A.J. Brown ran upfield, and it kind of seemed like he kind of lost track of the ball almost. Jalen did overthrow him just a little bit, but it seems like A.J. kind of lost track, and he slowed down his route, and it was a little hard to see exactly what happened there, but he did end up with 40 yards on 4 receptions, which is... Obviously, he's not going to be happy with that, I know. That's kind of something else to dive into. But hopefully this Thursday against the Giants, with a kind of a worse passing defense, but a really good defensive line, you think that maybe he can probably open up the field a little bit more and get more yards on his receptions. He was targeted, however, 8 times, which is obviously a sign that he is really involved in the offense. He's getting the ball thrown to him, but he's just kind of not getting the end result where he's getting the ball in his hands. He also was penalized on a potential touchdown pass where Patrick Surtain did draw a flag. But obviously with A.J. Brown, he obviously wants to be here. I think there's no sense in the Eagles getting rid of him or trading him. He wants to be here. He just won a Super Bowl. I think that those trade rumors can be put to bed, and he can really just stay on this team and focus on winning another Super Bowl. But another thing to look at is that DeVonta Smith had an excellent game yesterday, over 100 yards receiving, along with Jalen Hurts having 280-plus passing yards, which is excellent to see out of him. Obviously the big narrative is that Jalen Hurts cannot throw the ball. He can't put it through tight windows, which is obviously not true, because we've seen him in the biggest games of his life, like last year's Super Bowl and the Super Bowl in 2023. It's obvious that Jalen Hurts can throw the ball when he needs to. He can lead game-winning drives. He can take the team to the house. He can do everything that you want in a quarterback. He can win through the air, and he can win on the ground with his legs. And I know this graphic here doesn't really represent the level of play calling that happened yesterday. As you can see through the whole game, there was a lot more punting than there was scoring. We only scored one field goal. We only had 2 touchdowns. But, of course, that's just going to happen. This was a really talented defensive team. The Eagles knew that going into this game. Jalen Hurts was sacked 6 times this game. Now, some of those sacks did fall on him. There was a few times where he did leave a clean pocket, as he is known to do. This offensive line was also injured. Landon Dickerson had to leave the game early, as me and Alex mentioned in our video last night. He ended up hurting his ankle. He's also mentioned that he's still recovering from an off-season back surgery. He also had a meniscus surgery in training camp. So this offensive line is playing hurt. Again, this is a huge factor going into this season, that this offensive line is not up to par. They're not fully healthy. This is not the elite offensive line of the Eagles that we know of the past. So that's something else that needs to be addressed. Jeff Stoutland needs to kind of take some of the second stringers like Brett Toth, who was probably going to be in this Thursday against the New York Giants, and they're going to have to figure something out here. They're going to have to obviously prepare for this game against the Giants, against another talented defensive line, and they're going to need to figure out how they can effectively play to their strengths and come out with another win. So kind of just circling back to Kevin Patullo, I don't think that he called a bad game. I think he did the right things today. I just don't think that the end result ended up in his favor. I think the execution was off. Jalen Hurts was quoted here saying after the game that, "I can't tell you what the issue is. Ultimately, I can take accountability for everything and take responsibility for it all. The lack of execution, the lack of the sense of urgency, I take responsibility for all of it, and I'm just trying to find solutions for it." Jalen Hurts has always been one to take accountability for the offensive struggles of this team, which is obviously what you want to see in a leader of your football team. Obviously the penalties were a big portion of the loss yesterday, whether it was Jalen Carter going off sides, whether it was the illegal shift by Saquon Barkley, who also took accountability for his penalty. He knows he has to do better in that sense. We also had an unnecessary roughing penalty from Zach Bond. These players know that they can't make penalties like that. They can't make these mistakes. And obviously I think that they're going to clean it up, and they're going to learn from their mistakes, and they're going to get a win in Thursday in New York against the Giants this coming Thursday. And just one more thing to wrap up today's video. Saquon Barkley only ended up having 6 carries today. Yesterday, sorry, excuse me. I don't know what happened yesterday with Saquon Barkley. I saw maybe he was maybe a little injured. He was slow to get up on one play after one of his runs, but I don't know what happens. I'm not sure exactly what the plan was yesterday with Saquon Barkley, why his usage was so low in the run game. The Birds only ended up running the ball 10 times, with A.J. Dillon running it twice, Jalen Hurts running it twice, and of course Saquon Barkley only having 6 rush attempts. Now, he did have an excellent receiving touchdown, beating out Alex Singleton, with Jalen Hurts making a perfect throw to him. But this is a slightly concerning thing to look at, because I don't know what this is going to lead up to heading into Thursday against the Giants. The Giants defense, run defense specifically, has been pretty solid this year. So obviously we're going to need Saquon Barkley in this game against the Giants. But that's going to wrap it up for today's video, guys. Let me know what your score prediction is going to be for this matchup against the Giants on Thursday. How do you think Saquon Barkley is going to do if he does play? Do you think Jalen Hurts is going to have another excellent passing game? Let me know in the comments below. Have a good day, everyone. Go Birds.